They've won it 4 times. They've reached the final 8 times. For 90 years, they showed up to every single World Cup they were eligible for, and they almost always made noise deep into the tournament. Germany and the World Cup, for generations of football fans, felt like a relationship written in stone. Inevitable, permanent, untouchable. And then 2018 happened. Group stage exit. Then 2022, another group stage exit. Back-to-back humiliations for a nation that defined World Cup dominance for most of the 20th century. And now, with the 2026 World Cup in North America just weeks away, Germany is walking into the tournament carrying more baggage than any 4-time champion in football history has ever carried. The squad announcement has been delayed. Key players are racing against injury. The coach is under enormous pressure. A historic qualifying loss is still in the background. And there are real, legitimate questions from analysts, from fans, from people inside German football itself about whether this team can handle the weight of what they're being asked to do. This is not a team in crisis in the way you might think. The talent is genuinely there. On paper, Germany have one of the most exciting attacking combinations in world football. But paper doesn't play in July, and the history of what this team does when the lights are brightest is no longer the reassurance it once was. Let's go through every layer of this story, because there are more of them than most people have put together in one place. Start with the squad announcement itself, because the way it's unfolded tells you a lot about where Germany are right now. Julian Nagelsmann was supposed to name his 2026 World Cup squad on May 12th, a clean, organized reveal in Frankfurt, the moment the country finds out which 26 players are carrying their hopes across the Atlantic. It didn't happen on May 12th. The announcement was pushed back 9 days to May 21st. The squad gathering itself was delayed 2 days to May 27th. And the official reason given was completely legitimate. Nagelsmann wanted to see the last round of the Bundesliga on May 16th, watch the German Cup final between Bayern Munich and Stuttgart on May 23rd, and give injured players every possible chance to prove their fitness before he made his final decisions. Those are reasonable explanations. But step back from the official reasoning and think about what it actually means. Less than 3 weeks from the start of the tournament, Germany's coach still doesn't know who he's taking. Not with certainty, not with confidence. He's watching final league matches and waiting to see whether specific players can convince him they're fit enough, ready enough, sharp enough for a World Cup. That's not the posture of a team going into this tournament with clarity and calm. That's the posture of a team managing uncertainty right up until the last possible moment. And the uncertainty is real, because the injury situation around this Germany squad is significant. Serge Gnabry is out, completely. Done. It's over for him. Bayern Munich confirmed it after an adductor tear in his right thigh suffered during training in the build-up to a league match. Expected recovery time, around 3 months. The World Cup is over for him before it starts. Bayern's board member for sport, Max Eberl, all but confirmed it publicly. And Gnabry's own response was heartbreaking, an emotional message that left no room for doubt. He was back to his best form before this happened. He was enjoying the kind of performances that reminded everyone why he's been one of Germany's most important attacking options for nearly a decade. And now he's watching from home. Nagelsmann's response was sincere. He said it was very bitter news, especially at this stage. He said he told Gnabry that everyone in the national team was behind him. Those are the right things to say, but they don't fill the space Gnabry leaves in the squad. And that space is real. He was one of the few German forwards who could genuinely play anywhere across the front line. Wide left, wide right, centrally, arriving late into the box. His ability to read the game inside the penalty area, combined with the directness and pace to stay out wide and beat defenders, made him uniquely flexible in Nagelsmann's attacking system. Now that system needs to reconfigure, and it needs to do that reconfiguration without the luxury of time. Then there's Jamal Musiala, and this one is more complicated because Musiala's situation is not a straight injury ruling him out. It's a recovery story with question marks still attached. Cast your mind back to last summer, the FIFA Club World Cup, Bayern Munich in the United States, and the moment that stopped German football cold. Musiala suffering a serious ankle injury during that tournament. He missed the entire subsequent international period in September. He was absent from the March 2026 squad because he'd had a reaction in his ankle, what Nagelsmann described as fairly normal after a long injury layoff, but frustrating nonetheless. Musiala himself has declared he is fit and ready to travel to the United States. Nagelsmann has said all players, including Musiala, must be 100% fit to earn nomination. The good news is that Musiala has been putting together a run of games for Bayern in recent weeks, building back toward match sharpness. The expectation is that he will be in the squad. The question, the one nobody can answer right now, is whether the Musiala who arrives at the World Cup will be the one that made UEFA's Euro 2024 team of the tournament, or whether he'll be a player whose game is still finding its rhythm after the longest injury layoff of his career. Because the gap between those two versions of Musiala is enormous. At his best, he's one of the 3 or 4 most dangerous players in European football. His dribbling numbers are among the elite. His ability to receive the ball in tight spaces under intense pressure and still produce, still beat players, still find angles that shouldn't exist is genuinely elite. If that Musiala turns up in Group E, Germany look like a completely different prospect. If he's at 70 or 80%, the creative burden falls more heavily on Florian Wirtz. And while Wirtz is exceptional, carrying that responsibility alone is different from sharing it with a player of Musiala's caliber. Then there's Kai Havertz, and this one adds another thread to the injury picture. He's had a difficult season at Arsenal with significant hamstring and knee problems. He's a potential starter through the center of Germany's attack. Nagelsmann has options at striker, and Nick Woltemade and Dennis Undav, but Havertz brings a different kind of intelligence to the position, and his experience at tournament football is something the younger options simply don't have. If Havertz's physical condition isn't right, the striker question, already one of Nagelsmann's biggest selection headaches, becomes even harder. And there's Antonio Rudiger. The Real Madrid center back has had an injury-hit season. The player who was supposed to be a cornerstone of Germany's defensive spine is no longer the certainty he looked like 18 months ago. A 4-3 friendly win over Switzerland in March, where Germany conceded 3 goals, reopened all the questions about defensive robustness. 3 goals conceded in a friendly against Switzerland is not a crisis, but coming against the backdrop of everything else, it's another piece of evidence that this team is still working some things out. All of this needs to be understood in context, because Germany's situation in isolation is manageable. Multiple injury concerns, a delayed squad announcement, uncertainty at goalkeeper, these are challenges, but they're challenges that well-organized football nations navigate regularly. The reason it feels bigger than that is the backdrop against which it's happening, and that backdrop is 2 consecutive World Cup group stage exits. Think about what that means for the psychology of this team. Germany have not advanced past the first round of a World Cup since they won it the whole thing in Brazil in 2014. 12 years, 2 tournaments, 2 times the world's 4th-ranked nation has packed up and gone home before the knockout rounds even began. In 2018, it was the humiliation of being eliminated despite having a squad full of established stars. In 2022, it was the exact same story. The talent was there, the reputation was there, and still they went home. They lost to Japan. They beat Spain and Costa Rica, but it wasn't enough. And the moment when they needed a result with Costa Rica to go through, they couldn't hold their lead. The world football watched Germany crumble at exactly the moment the pressure was highest. Those exits didn't just damage Germany's results. They damaged something harder to rebuild. The fear factor, the aura, the sense felt by every opponent before the match even starts that playing Germany in a World Cup is dangerous, that they'll find a way, that their history gives them something extra when it matters most. For most of the 20th century, that psychological weight was real. Opposing coaches genuinely worried about what Germany would do when they were a goal down with 20 minutes left. They always seemed to find something. They always seemed to survive. And then they won. That doesn't exist anymore. As one analysis put it, back-to-back group stage exits destroyed their aura of invincibility. For the first time in modern history, teams look at Germany and see a side that can bleed. And the teams in Group E will have done their homework. Group E is Germany, Curacao, Ivory Coast, and Ecuador. On the surface, 3 games Germany should win. In reality, 3 games that carry psychological weight Germany has not had to manage at a World Cup in decades. Curacao are making their World Cup debut. They're the smallest nation by population to ever qualify, around 156,000 people on a Caribbean island. Their veteran Dutch coach, Dick Advocaat, quit in February due to his daughter's health issues. They were replaced by Fred Rutten and have been piecing things together since. On paper, Germany opened their tournament against a debutante nation going through coaching upheaval. That's exactly the kind of match that should be clinical and comfortable.
But Germany opens against Curaçao in Houston on June 19th, and every single person in that stadium, every pundit watching, every German fan at home will be thinking about Slovakia. They'll be thinking about what happened in September 2025 when Germany faced a team they were supposed to brush aside and got beaten 2-0 in front of the world. That memory doesn't disappear. It sits in the background of the Curaçao match like a shadow. Ivory Coast are a genuinely dangerous side. The Elephants are back at the World Cup for the first time since 2014, a 12-year absence that ended when a new generation led them to the 2024 Africa Cup of Nations title. Under coach Emers Faye, who was appointed mid-tournament during that AFCON campaign and went on to win it, they play with pace, intensity, and the confidence of a nation that has found something to believe in again. Manchester United's Amad Diallo is part of this group. Nicolas Pepe brings experience, and the collective energy of a team that knows it belongs after 12 years of watching others go to World Cups should not be underestimated. Ecuador are the other threat. They qualified second in CONMEBOL, behind Argentina, ahead of everyone else. Moises Caicedo is one of the best midfielders in Premier League football. They press with purpose. They close spaces quickly. They are the kind of opponent that exposes exactly the weakness German analysts have been discussing for months: Germany's vulnerability to direct, high-tempo counter-attacking play when they lose the ball in advanced positions. The concern about Germany's defensive transition is not new, but it's been restated by enough credible observers that it now carries weight. When Germany presses high and the ball is lost, the space behind their fullbacks is significant. Against teams with the pace and directness to exploit it, that's a genuine problem. And in Ecuador's wide players and an Ivory Coast pace in behind, Group E has exactly the kind of runners who can hurt Germany in exactly that way. So what does Nagelsmann actually have going for him? Quite a lot if everything comes together. The creative pairing of Wirtz and Musiala, if Musiala arrives genuinely fit, is as good as any attacking duo in this tournament. Wirtz had a difficult debut season at Liverpool in terms of team performances, but he never stopped producing in a German shirt, and his connection with Nagelsmann's system runs deep. He was superb in the 4-3 friendly over Switzerland in March, setting up Germany's first 2 goals and scoring himself twice. That kind of display, carrying the attack almost single-handedly while the team around him wasn't perfect, shows you what Wirtz can do when he's engaged and trusted. Nico Schlotterbach and Jonathan Tah have built a genuine partnership at center back. Oliver Baumann, who stepped into the enormous position vacated by Manuel Neuer's international retirement, has earned genuine trust through the qualifying campaign. David Raum at left back brings attacking quality that gives Wirtz the license to move inside and find dangerous positions. The attacking depth is there too, even with Gnabry gone. Denis Undav finished as one of the top scorers in the Bundesliga this season, 16 goals, and Nagelsmann has said publicly that you can't leave a striker with those numbers at home. Nick Waldemide brings physical presence and directness that Germany hasn't always had as an option. Leroy Sané, now at Galatasaray, brings experience of major tournaments and the ability to play wide or through the middle. The pieces exist. The question, the central, defining question of this German World Cup campaign, is whether those pieces can be assembled into something that functions when the match is level in the 75th minute of a knockout game, and the crowd is loud, and the pressure is real, and Germany needs someone to take the game by the throat. That's the version of Germany the world hasn't seen since 2014, and that's the version the 2026 World Cup needs to find out whether they've found again. For FIFA, Germany's uncertainty matters beyond the national team itself. Germany is the most searched and most watched European nation at every World Cup globally. Their matches generate enormous broadcasting numbers. Their fan base is international in a way few countries can match. A third consecutive group stage exit, unthinkable 12 months ago, genuinely conceivable now, would be the single biggest story of the tournament's first 2 weeks. It would dominate the conversation in a way that no amount of upsets involving smaller nations could. It would signal to the world that something has fundamentally changed in the global football order, and it would raise immediate, uncomfortable questions about whether FIFA's expanded 40-18 format is producing the dramatic group stages it promised, or whether the big nations are simply sleepwalking through them until the knockout rounds arrive. The Germany question is bigger than Germany. There's also a warm-up schedule that raises its own questions. Germany plays Finland in Mainz on May 31st, and then faces the US in Chicago on June 6th. That Chicago match has its own storyline. Germany against the host nation on American soil 5 days before the World Cup begins. For the US, it's a dress rehearsal and a statement. For Germany, it's a final test, and the result will be under a microscope in a way that friendly matches rarely are. Nagelsmann knows what's at stake. He's spoken about the aim being to win the World Cup, an ambition that sounds right for a 4-time champion, but also carries the weight of what the last 2 tournaments delivered. He's been in charge long enough now that this is his moment of truth. Euro 2024 on home soil showed promise. Germany beat Scotland 5-1 on the opening night, generated genuine excitement in the host nation, pushed Spain to extra time in the quarterfinals before losing. There were signs of something real. But the World Cup is different. The group stage doesn't forgive the same way a home crowd can carry you through a rough night. The squad he selects on May 21st will tell us a great deal about how he's thinking, whether he backs fitness over form in specific positions, whether Musiala makes the cut unconditionally or with caveats attached, whether Rudiger earns a place despite his difficult season, whether he goes with the experienced names who've been through the fires of previous disappointments, or trusts the younger players who haven't yet accumulated the scars. German football fans in Dortmund, Munich, and Stuttgart are watching every training clip with what's been described as a sharper edge, always half expecting something to go wrong. That change in the national mood, from assumption to anxiety, is one of the more telling details about where this moment sits in Germany's football history. They haven't been to a World Cup knockout match since they beat Algeria in the round of 16 in 2014, and then went on to win the trophy. That's 12 years. That's a generation of German football fans who have never seen their team compete in a World Cup quarterfinal. And the path back to that point runs through Houston, through Curaçao, through Ivory Coast, through Ecuador, through a squad that is still finalizing itself days before departure, through a coach managing injuries in positions he can't fully afford to have questions in, through the weight of history that used to be Germany's greatest asset, and now, for the first time in memory, has become something closer to a burden. Football doesn't care about your history, it only cares about what you do next. On June 19th, in Houston, we'll start to find out if Germany have truly found their way back, or whether the story of this World Cup will be written without them. So tell me where you stand. Do you believe Germany have what it takes to finally escape the group stage and go deep at the 2026 World Cup? Or is the injury crisis, the psychological weight, and the unresolved questions around the squad too much to overcome? Drop your answer in the comments below. I genuinely want to know what football fans around the world think about this Germany team right now. If this is the kind of deep, detailed World Cup coverage you want all the way through to July, subscribe now and come with us for the entire journey. Every group stage story, every shock, every moment that defines the tournament, we'll be here for all of it. This story is still developing, and as always, football never stays quiet for long. See you in the next one.